Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, Brandon Van Cleve, I'm Vice President here at Pine Cove Consulting. We have Scott Eppel on from Sophos, who's going to give the majority of the presentation and is our expert on the Phish threat software and how it may work for your organization. So as always, I think many of you might be repeat attendees, but we give a different topic every month. We record all these webinars, and you can find them all on our YouTube channel. So if you miss this one or have to miss any of these, you can always catch all of our topics on our YouTube page. As far as questions go, make sure you use the questions tab inside the GoToWebinar panel. Just populate those there at any time, and I'll make sure we collect those and ask those questions at the end. I highly encourage you to put those in there. I think our best webinars have been those interactive ones where people have asked direct questions to us or to Scott or whoever we have on for that topic. So let's get started. So first off, who's Pine Cove? In case anyone doesn't know on the call, we're an IT consulting company based out of Bozeman. This is our 25th year in the industry, servicing, as you can see, a lot of different entities throughout kind of the Rocky Mountains. You can see the little yellow stars there are locations that we have employees or offices. So we're spread out. We cover every corner of the states we work in, and many of you know that already, as I know we have quite a few current customers on the call. Cybersecurity focused. People ask me, have you always been a cybersecurity company? Well, 25 years ago, we definitely were not. We really were a gap filler for all of our customers. The problem has been we had to get up to speed on cybersecurity because of the need and the concern that we were seeing with our customers and the calls we were getting from new customers with breaches that were happening and they didn't know what to do. So we really have honed our skills and continue to hone our skills on the cybersecurity industry and try to bring the best solutions to protect our customers. And that's, again, why we're with Sophos and why we have Sophos on the call. We served on the Partner Advisory Council for Sophos. We served on the Meta Network Security Council in Montana, and we were actually awarded the National Partner of the Year for Sophos in 2016, which is a great honor for small company in the flyover states. So that was great for us and has really catapulted us as a major player with them and with other organizations across our territory. And then this is basically the mission statement that we've built and why we've tried to get out on the forefront of this topic instead of receiving these calls from our customers saying, we've been breached and we need you to come in and save the day. Our goal is to educate and try to take a more proactive stance and see if we can, save a business or an organization before something happens. So that's kind of us and the purpose of having this webinar as well as many of our other webinars. So in saying that, I'm going to get over to Scott and I'm going to let him talk about Phish threat.
Thanks, Brandon, and hello everyone on the call and anyone that might be listening later on the recording. I am very pleased to be here and get the opportunity to talk with you today. Let me just take a minute here and make sure I can get my screen share going. All right. So as Brandon mentioned, I'm with Sophos. Been with Sophos for around 2 years now, and my role here, I'm responsible for managing our Sophos Phish threat product. Some of you may be familiar with it already. If you are, great. I think hopefully this webinar will still give you some insights into some of the trends we're seeing in phishing. And for those of you who aren't familiar yet with Phish threat, a big part of today will be about showing you through both some an introduction to the topic in general, but an actual live demo for you of the Phish threat tool. And then, as Brandon said, we'll leave some time for questions at the end. Happy to talk about anything you'd like within the context of the phishing threat landscape, and of course the Sophos Phish threat product. I'll advance the slide here. Want to start talking today first, and many of you may be already quite aware of what phishing is, and how prominent it is as a threat vector these days. But I think it piggybacking off of Brandon's slide of why Pineco Consulting exists, what mission it's on, relates strongly to the premise that many of you have been targeted with phishing, are currently being targeted with phishing, or certainly will be in the future. If there's anyone on the call, by the way, who's never seen a phishing email within their organization, I would love to talk to you because you would be quite unique. And but all joking aside, phishing is a serious problem, and so I like to start out with this slide you see here. It's a quote from Frank Abagnale. You might recognize him if you've seen the movie Catch Me If You Can. This is not Frank Abagnale here on the screen. This is his character, played by Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie. So the quote here that I think is relevant to our discussion is, there's no technology today that cannot be defeated by social engineering. Right, pretty, I think, non-controversial statement. Frank Abagnale was a prolific con man. He certainly knew how to trick people into doing things that they otherwise wouldn't. And he spent the latter part of his life working in the FBI, actually educating people on the risks of social engineering. And this is really a key point. And the reason I start with this is, Pinecove exists, Sophos exists, because we believe that we can bring technology solutions to the problem of securing our organizations and our assets. And without a doubt, technology is a huge part of the solution to how we stop the bad guys from doing what they do. But the fact is that no technology is 100% complete. No technology is 100% effective at stopping threats today or in the future. And anyone who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something and not doing it with full transparency. The fact is that as long as there's an end user connected to the assets within our organization, that is one of, if not the primary vector that attackers are going to go after, because we are humans, and we can all through different sorts of biases and cognitive flaws in human nature, we can be tricked into doing things. So we all understand kind of at some level that we are the path of least resistance for an attacker. What I'd like to do in the next few minutes, just dig in a little bit to why phishing in particular, why email and why phishing have become the vector of choice for bad guys to go after our end users. And it really starts with two things. Why do bad guys love phishing? There's two reasons. It's easy and it's lucrative. It pays off, right? So it's just those two things go very nicely together. If we can do things that are easy that make us money, we're going to do them, and bad guys are going to do it too, just with obviously less integrity than most of us bring to our day-to-day work. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of the attacker. Why is it easier than ever to go phishing? Well, in the old days, right, you kind of have this picture of the genius hacker. You had to know what you were doing, right? You not only had to be able to craft a convincing attack, like, and have the social engineering mindset like Frank Abagnale. You also had to have the technical wherewithal to deliver your attack to your targets, meaning to get an email out to perhaps millions of mailboxes, or to have the wherewithal to get really targeted in doing some recon and research and targeting, infiltrating a particular organization with a good kind of fraudulent email. So you had to have some skills. Today, that's not so much the case. Now, as you see here with what we're calling phishing as a service, if you're a bad guy, you can go on the dark web. You can find sort of the seedy underbelly of the internet where you can just go and buy a phishing kit, meaning buy an email template, perhaps a fraudulent landing page, even have that landing page hosted for you, all as a service. And you can even rent a botnet and go about and basically have those emails delivered on your behalf by someone who's already done the hard work of getting that infrastructure into place. So for example, here you see on the screen, here's a very convincing looking Netflix email. Looks like it came from Netflix. If any of us have gotten emails from them, I don't think, just based on the visual appearance of this, we'd think twice about this being a legitimate email. In fact, that's what these phishing kits are based on, is the actual code, the actual HTML styling of these emails. It's just being ripped off directly and then used for an attacker to mimic those same emails that we're all used to getting. So I don't have to be skilled. I don't have to have any kind of abilities with the HTML or design. I can just buy one of these as a kit, and then to the point of infrastructure and the ability to actually at scale deliver targeted phishing attacks. Well, again, here we are. We're looking at an offering on the dark web, someone who is ready to sell us the ability to send emails to millions of addresses, avoiding those IP blacklists, avoiding all the traps of that legitimate marketers today, go to legitimate email delivery services for, right? The ability to get mail to the addresses that we want to. So these are all services available to the bad guys as well, and it makes the bar for launching a phishing attack, frankly, very, very low. So that's the ease, kind of the ease of the attack side of things. The other part, as I said before, is that there's a return on this, right? It's you can make good money phishing, and you can think back to the old days of or the more traditional spam emails, where perhaps collecting on money for my efforts was a little more difficult, right? Because I would send out spammy emails offering knockoff pharmaceuticals and things like that. And ultimately, there was a transaction happening where someone had to typically pay with a credit card. So I had to have all of that infrastructure set up to be able to accept credit card payments without setting off red flags with the payment processors. It was a much more difficult effort to collect money in return for my criminal deeds. That's really all changed today, and ransomware is the biggest example of that. And what you see here on the screen is actually again a simple tool. I can go online on the dark web and actually generate ransomware payloads for use in my phishing campaigns. And what's made it so easy is kind of goes hand in hand with the rise of cryptocurrencies, right? Is I don't need to go to strike a deal with payment processors, find some that will be sort of willing to look the other way and accept my credit card payments. All that goes away with cryptocurrency. It's really made it possible for bad guys to monetize their efforts in a much more direct way. On top of that, this is something not as closely associated with phishing in people's minds, but it will be, and it's certainly raising its profile in the security space, is cryptojacking, right? Basically JavaScript running in a browser that is using your CPU to mine cryptocurrency. And this is another way, this is a much more recent trend, but where ransomware is, there's technologies, including some from Sophos, that do a great job of protecting against ransomware. It's starting to make it harder for crooks to make their money with ransomware, and a lot of them are beginning to turn to cryptojacking, crypto mining as an alternative, where if they can just get you to click on a link and open a browser tab, they can mine some cryptocurrency while you've got that page open, and do that enough times, do that at scale, and you can make money. The last thing that's making phishing really kind of continue to be the main source of breaches, of security incidents, is just some of the tactics are evolving as well. So we just talked for a couple minutes about kind of how easy it is to do sort of the mass phishing kind of stuff. Well, it's not quite as easy to do some of the more sophisticated attacks, but it is very lucrative. And to the point you see here on the slide, 5.3 billion. That's an FBI, a number coming straight from the FBI of losses. I believe in 2017 was that statistic from. These are losses to business email compromise, which is a term you may have heard. Speaks to kind of a variety of attacks where you have crooks that are basically acting as imposters. They are pretending to be perhaps a high-ranking official in your company. A CEO, a CFO is a common target. You may have heard of this as CEO fraud, CFO fraud, right? And the point is, these emails have no malicious payload whatsoever. There's no link, there's no attachment, there's very little, if anything, in fact, because in many of these cases, the emails are actually coming from compromised accounts. So they're coming from the CFO of your organization. But it's not the CFO actually writing the email, right? And there's nothing, or it's very difficult. We're in the very early days of any kind of technological solution to this. So it leaves a real problem for us, and ultimately it comes down to being the human on the other end, the receiving end of this email, is really our last and only line of defense to stopping this kind of attack. All right, so just a few, it's fun to run through a few of these examples, but I throw this one up first, right, because kind of to underscore the points I've been making up till now, which is phishing is a real problem, and it's easier than ever for the attackers. It's more lucrative than ever. But it's also as harder than ever for end users and for ourselves, right? The days of the good old Nigerian prince scam email or any of the other famous kind of phishing and spam emails where everything is very poorly spelled and there's just grammatical errors all over the place. When we talk with people who kind of are of the opinion that phishing is only a problem that should be as easy as just getting people to stop clicking around, that it should be so easy to spot for our end users. That's just really not the case anymore, as we talked about a little earlier. So the Nigerian prince is no more. Today's threats are much more sophisticated. Let's look at a few of them, and then we're going to jump into a demo of Phish threat and talk a little bit about that. But so here's an example. It's a real phishing email, and we've redacted some parts, but let's read it. Dear Steven, so they've got my real name, or imagine you're on the receiving end of this. I've got some money that's due, acting on behalf of Cranfield Aerospace. Yada yada, right? There's a link I might click on because now I've all of a sudden, right? This is the social engineering aspect of this. I'm already on my heels, right? I'm thinking, I owe money? What do you mean I owe money? Start to run through in your head. And man, they've addressed this directly to me. They have my address. You can imagine if I'm busy, if I'm looking over things quickly, I might go ahead and click on that link, right? It's targeted right at me, and we don't always stop to realize just how much of our data is already out there on the web through Facebook and LinkedIn and other social media applications. It's just trivial for anyone to find our names and locations and where we work and really target us with something that seems like it's really meant for us, as opposed to being a templated kind of phishing attack that might be going to thousands, if not millions, of users. Right. So this is very difficult for our end users to spot. Here's a second example. You can see why these were part of the same phishing campaign, but the links are totally different. The amounts, the currency amounts are different. Of course, the recipient name and address are different. So again, even with from a technological standpoint, you can imagine this makes it harder for technology to solve, right? Because these emails aren't identical. They may not even be coming from the same from address, but they're part of the same campaign. The same attacker is behind these. Here's another one, and I often like to do this in front of live audiences, but do it there silently as you're watching. One of these is a phishing email, one is a real email, and like I'll often ask for a raise of hands to see who thinks the one on the left is phishing, who thinks the one on the right. Take your guess, look at them for a minute. But the point is, as you're looking at this, the point of this slide is just show you just how good right, these phishing emails are. As I said before, they're often just copies of exactly the code that's in the emails that the real legitimate emails that these brands are sending out. And of course, some modifications have been made, right? So I'll reveal here, and you can cheer silently to yourself if you got it right. If you got it wrong, if you got it wrong, don't feel bad. Many of us will, and that's kind of the point here, right? But the one on the left is the Phish, and you can see there's some slight differences and things. If I'm really savvy, I would notice, right? The one on the left, what's it trying to get me to do? It's trying to get me to view an invoice to pay something. So it's again preying on my human sort of tendencies, right? If you're going to be, if it seems like I owe money, or there's some sense of urgency, or I'm delinquent in something, all of us will have a sense of some anxiety around that, right? And we'll be more likely to follow through with whatever action we're being asked to take, and less likely to stop and think about it, right? Because our emotions are starting to come into play. Here's another example, real phishing email. You will be happy to know we have a template very similar to this in the Phish threat product, so you can use this exact style of attack on your end users. But again, anyone on the call who has kids, right, particularly, you can see the scenario. Oh, hey, I get these iTunes receipts all the time. But this one, right, a box of gems, $70. We are all starting to think the kid got a hold of the iPad again. And you can see how easy it would be to think that this is legitimate and to go ahead and look to cancel the order, right, and click on that link, and then all of a sudden we've fallen prey to the attack. All right, last example. This one, this is actually a real Phish threat email. So this is a simulated phishing email. It's not malicious, but it's meant to simulate a malicious attack. Comes from Phish threat, and what obviously it's in Spanish, so many of you may not recognize anything about the body, but that's okay. The important part is what I've highlighted in the from address, and now this is mimicking a technique that I wanted to make you all aware of, because it really causes so many problems, especially in today's day and age with how many of us read mail on our mobile devices, right? So you can see this is a view of the email in Outlook. I've opened it up, and if I didn't think anything was wrong based on the subject line and the email body, which maybe I wouldn't, because the email looks decent and it's not immediately apparent that it might be suspicious. At least in Outlook, I can look up there, and Outlook is showing me not only the name of where it's coming from, but the actual from address. So I can immediately tell that, hey, if I'm savvy, right, I can tell that, hey, that's not an ebay.com address. Let's look, on the other hand, at what this same email looks like opened on my mobile device. And you'll see that from address is not visible. So imagine the problems that your users face, and that we all face today with how frequently I check my email on my phone many times a day, and we're exposed. This is known as display name deception, or display name fraud, display name abuse. It's the idea that I can make the display name, where the eBay part of this, I can make it anything I want, right? And that's all that's shown to me on a mobile device. So detecting that this came from someone other than eBay takes more effort, and anything that takes more effort is going to be less likely for any of us to do, right, in our busy lives. All right, so not meaning to scare you, but think it's good, of course, to go through some of these examples, understand why, again, it's so hard today for our end users. It's not their fault. It's that the attacks are more prolific and they are getting more sophisticated. And all of that results in some pretty astonishing statistics. The one here just always makes me look twice, that phishing attacks, actually, if you look, this is data from from Sophos Phish threat, but it's very much in line, that 13% click rate, meaning I opened the email and I clicked through a link in it. That 13%, that is what is our global average across Phish threat customers. It's very close to, if you read the Verizon data breach report that they produce annually, great data in there, and the number typically hovers between 12 and 14% as well. So it's you compare that to these numbers from Experian. They did an email benchmark report for email marketers, and you see the business, B2C and B2B email click rates for marketing emails. These are coming from legitimate companies going to consumers and business business purchasers. The click rates are just substantially lower. So we've got a real problem here. And despite all that, despite the fact that we've seen phishing is rampant, it's getting more sophisticated, IT pros such as yourselves are seeing phishing attacks at most on a daily, weekly, or hourly basis. And some, maybe not even aware of what's coming into their organization. Some saying they don't even know how frequently they're getting hit with phishing. And despite all of that, the majority, 62% in our survey, are not testing users. They're not testing the resilience to phishing. They're not training users on the correct behaviors, and they're not providing follow-up training around topics related to security awareness. So we're not doing everything that we can and that we need to be safe. And we think we have a solution. And that is with Phish threat, to essentially phish like the bad guy, act like that attacker in a safe manner and with consent. You're doing this not to trick people, but you're doing it to drive awareness and to start to condition behaviors, right? To condition people to take a healthy level of suspicion anytime they're going in and opening emails and responding to them in their mailboxes. So we need to be educating our users. We need to be training them. We need to be helping them practice, right? Because we don't want the first time that they do this or think about this stuff to be when an actual attacker has delivered a message to them. We want it to be when it's us sending them safe but realistic attack simulations, which we can then follow up with effective training modules for people who we can either do this on a, just to push out training to all our users so that everyone's getting information they need to be safe, but also, through Phish threat, as we'll see, we can tie training to these simulations so that anyone who is getting tripped up by an attack that we simulated can find out exactly what they missed and what they should have done, and what they can practice the next time around. And then, all of it gets tied together with sort of comprehensive analytics and reporting. You and your organization need to understand where you are currently from an awareness perspective. How likely are your users to click on suspicious looking emails? And you want to be able to measure that improvement. You want to be able to demonstrate that improvement over time to others in your organization, or to your customers or whoever you're working with here. You want to be able to show that what you're doing is having an impact. So again, Sophos Phish threat is our product that helps you to do all of these things. It's available in our Sophos Central cloud management console. And as with everything Sophos, our tagline, if you're not aware, is security made simple. And in the same way, that's the same mantra and mindset that we bring to Phish threat. It's extremely simple to get started with Phish threat. And it's really a three-step process of running one of these simulated attacks, starting with choosing an email template, choosing an attack template from hundreds that we've made available to you that mimic, in fact, many of them come straight from our global Sophos Labs research group, who analyzes millions of spam and phishing emails on a daily basis. Many of them come from that source of intelligence, and they're there all right inside the tool for you to choose from. Then you choose a training that you'll follow up with for users who might fall for the simulated attack. And as I said before, then you've got kind of this nice cloud-based dashboard for reporting on that awareness and understanding how it's changing over time and how the security posture of your organization and of individual users within it stands. So Right at the half hour here, we'll jump into a demo, and I'll give you a quick look at the tool, and then we'll pause for some questions at the end. All right. Okay, so let me make sure I am still signed in here. I may not be. What I'm going to show you is we'll start by logging into Sophos Central. Now, for some of you on the call may be customers of Sophos already, may be using Sophos Central, our cloud-based management console. If you're not, let me take 2 seconds to tell you about it. So, as I said before, Sophos, we're all about delivering effective security solutions, but made very simple. We specifically are designing our solutions for smaller to medium-sized companies. We focus on you, and so we believe in simplicity. We believe for effective security to be effective, it's got to be simple to administer. It's got to be simple to set up. And without that, you're decreasing the effectiveness of the solution. And Sophos Central is a great example of that. As I said, it's hosted in the cloud, so you can access it anywhere where you have a web browser. And more importantly, it's a single pane of glass. It's got all of these different products. So you see, we're going to jump into Phish Threat, but in my same console, and this is a big reason why Phish Threat is so unique too, is I don't have a separate console where I have to manage this. I get a single, I buy a Phish Threat license. First of all, it covers everything that you're going to see in the tool. I get to do simulated phishing attacks. I get to train my end users, and I can do so on an unlimited basis. There's no limit to the training I can use. There's no limit to any of the features or how much email I can send to my users. I pay for a license to cover each user, and I get everything that the tool offers. And I get it in that same console with endpoint protection, with protection for my servers, with protection for my mobile devices, encryption, web gateway and wireless solutions, and an email gateway as well. So tying all of the sort of defense in depth layers of your security strategy together, now including what you're doing about end user awareness and phishing training. All right, so let's dive into Phish Threat. So as you can see, when we go into Phish Threat, the first thing we're taken to is our kind of overview dashboard. And let me talk about a couple things here. So first and foremost, I have a couple of active campaigns going on. I can see the status of those very clearly highlighted right at the top. So we're always giving you a view into whatever your test you're currently running, assessment you're running, or training that you've pushed out. You get to see how it's going. In this case, a little uninteresting, but you can imagine, right? So I'm getting to see how many people I've sent the email to. Of those, these are simulated phishing emails, right? So of those, how many have opened it? Of those, how many have clicked it, right? And then if they've clicked, they've been enrolled in training, so I get to see sort of the compliance side of this, and they're required to go through this training. How many of them have done so far, right? So the key questions kind of right at the top level answered for you. Then the remainder of my dashboard focuses me in on some of the factors that I can look at to understand my current posture, my awareness level, as well as kind of how am I doing at running this program? Because it does, this is something we have to put a little effort into to make sure that we're getting the benefits of it. For example, we're highlighting for you, are you testing all your users? It's a common mistake or a common misperception that maybe we should just focus on kind of the accounting, finance, and people, because they're the only ones that pay invoices and things like that. They've got the credentials that an attacker might want to steal. It's just simply not the case. As we talked about before, executives right up to the CEO, president, are a prime target and should not be left out of testing. And the same thing, even with an employee that you may think is in a role that an attacker would have no interest in, there's nothing of value to gain from that employee. We always have to remember that any user within our organization can just be a launch pad or a pivot point to a more high value target or another asset within the organization. So everyone needs testing. Everyone needs to be aware of what to do to protect themselves and our organizations. And then we also, we keep you kind of focused on when was the last time you ran an assessment. We advocate doing this at least quarterly, if not monthly, doing something to keep this subject top of mind with users and just keep it fresh to help them remember that they need to use email with caution and make sure that they're practicing safe behaviors. And then, of course, we give you the things you need to know about the actual sort of compromise rates on these simulated attacks. How often are people clicking on the emails that they're getting? How often are they, or are they otherwise, falling for whatever mechanism the attack takes? And like everything we do, all of it's made so that I can quickly jump in and out of the data. So I've got, for example, a report of my caught users in the past 90 days, and I can dig right in from that point to see those in a full-on report, which can be exported out of the system for analysis. The other thing, everything is made to really easily kind of keep the program going. So if I've looked at my caught users and maybe I'd just look over the past month or so and say, well, I'm going to take them and I'm going to create a new campaign with those users. And it's great because with a click of a button, I can jump right into this process of running another assessment or a training and using those users that I just identified as having perhaps some less than ideal results on previous tests. I can just take them and immediately begin the next step of their education. So we'll walk real quickly through this process to show you kind of the ease of use. So we'll create a phishing assessment. And we'll do this one in English. It should be, I should just mention that we're available in a total of 9 languages. So if you do have any users who speak English as a second language, or you have offices in other parts of the world, we're available in all of these languages with both our email templates and training. So you can target users in their native language. So once I've made the choice of, okay, I'm going to run a phishing assessment, as I said before, we've got a library filled with hundreds of these templates for you to use. You can, of course, customize anything to your liking and save that. So these can be used later, these custom attacks that you've set up. But let's take one that's just right off the shelf and say, okay, I'm gonna choose this iTunes attack. It's meant to look like a friend has sent me a free song on iTunes, so I'll choose that. As you can see, there are others from banks and SaaS applications and things like Google and Facebook that we all use on a daily basis. Lots of things that will look familiar to your end users and will look probably familiar to you if you've looked at your spam filters or had to deal with any phishing incidents. Okay, as I said before, we can always follow up automatically any of the phishing assessments with training. So I can automatically enroll users who fail, who are caught by the simulation. I can enroll them in a training. In this example, maybe I'll just give them the basic phishing tips. We've got a whole range of training options, both from a regulatory compliance topic standpoint to, of course, security-related topics, but not just phishing. Things like choosing good passwords. We get into things about phone phishing and physical security, even, and of course, things on some of the latest threats like ransomware. So a lot that you can teach your end users, and a variety of formats, but everything nice and short and to the point, so that it's consumable. So as I click forward here, as I said before, everything's totally customizable. I can change anything I like about this, not only the body of the email itself, but who it appears to be coming from. I can change the subject line, and I can insert variables that will help me to personalize this to my users as well. I should show you here as well that the system will then, as a nice tool for driving compliance with training, it will send automated reminders to users who don't complete their training once it's been assigned. And so all of that is fully customizable as well and managed within the tool here. All right, then we're left to just do the fun stuff to pick who we're going to enroll. We can do this on a user-by-user basis or using groups. What's nice is because this is in Sophos Central has a share, kind of a singular centralized management for our user base. So if I'm already managing my endpoint protection, I've got my users in there, they're all available in Phish Threat right away, no setup time required. The other thing is Sophos Central has the ability to sync your users and groups in from Active Directory. So there's very little in the way of setup time there. You get the sync tool working, and all your users are kept up to date at all times in the console. All right, then I'm left just to do some quick confirmation. I've got my chosen email, my training. I can choose to schedule this at a time in the future or launch it right away. And I can also choose to do some things to kind of make this a little harder for, we love the behavior, first of all, of our end users kind of walking around the office or lifting their heads up and saying, hey, did you get this weird email from iTunes? And, but one thing, that's good behavior, right? That's actually what we want people doing. It's going to prevent phishing attacks from spreading. But when we're trying to get some statistics and an assessment, it's sometimes nice to be able to spread things out to reduce the likelihood that will impact our analytics. So we can spread this out to say, let's send up 5% of the enrollees at a time, and spread that out over a certain interval, whether it be hours or even a day apart. Okay. And then I'm done. Now this is ready to go, and I'll flip over to one of these that has some stats going on. But what you'll see here is, here's one of those emails that I had sent out previously. Users will now start getting the emails sent to them in their inboxes. As I mentioned before, there are some things they can look out for. That's what we're trying to teach them. But if I had been on my mobile device, maybe I would have clicked on this. This is the one I showed you the example of, where they're using that display name technique. So if I click on this as a user, you'll see what happens is, I forgot this campaign was set up in Spanish, but we take you to a landing page where the users are made aware immediately, hey, everything's okay. This wasn't a real attack, but it could have been, right? And this is the beginning of their training, telling them that they've been enrolled in some training that they can then dive right into on the spot. And start to go through, in this case, an interactive training on phishing. And all that, going back to that third point, the three legs of this product: the attacks, the training, and then the visibility into the results. You can see here we've got individual dashboards for every campaign that you're running. Again, showing those high-level stats, but also giving you the per campaign compromise rates along with a benchmark. And in this case, not the most interesting graph, but what we're also trying to get sort of ingrained in all of you and any of you that your colleagues that might have to deal with a phishing incident were it to come up in your organization. We give this timeline to help you understand just how quickly might if a phishing campaign were targeted at my users, how quickly would the first click come, and how long would I have to respond, right? Going back to Verizon's data breach report, the 2018 version that just recently came out, I think the average was something like 15 minutes, but measured in minutes in terms of how quickly the first click comes on average. And we often see actually within seconds that first user is clicking. So you don't have a lot of time to respond. And this timeline is a helpful tool for visualizing exactly what could happen in a real scenario. Okay. We can also dive into all the details of our users. We can export everything to a CSV, analyze it there, build other types of reports we might want internally, or bring that data into other systems that we might have. But that's the core of Phish Threat. Is very easy. Set up my campaigns, test my users, enroll them in training, and view the results and the improvement over time. All right. So I'm going to switch back here to our presentation, and before we jump into the Q&A, I'll just leave you with kind of the most recent data that we've pulled. Of course, we We want to make sure we're delivering a product that delivers results for you. And this is the good news that after just 4 tests, the average user from the first test that they received to the 4th test is reducing their click rate by 31%. So I think though, if I had to leave you with one thing here, it's that go into this kind of program knowing you're not going to get down to 0%. In fact, that's I don't think any organization out there, is going to ever get to where no one will click on an email. Not because our users are stupid, right? It's because the threats are sophisticated, and so look at these results and look for improvement, look for where you can strengthen maybe weaker parts of your user base, but realize that our users are not the problem, right? The attackers are the problem. Our users need help to learn effective techniques, but ultimately we're going to try and condition behaviors into them to do 2 things: to spot these emails and then to tell us about them, right? And that'll be the next thing coming up for Phish Threat is we'll be bringing features to help your users actually report these emails to you, which is kind of the critical second part of the training that we want our users to internalize, is that see something, say something attitude. Because going back to that incident timeline, right? That's the way that we can get in and make sure we put the brakes on any potential incident or attack that may be underway, is by getting our users involved as actually members of our detection and response team, right? They are the living, breathing people at the other end of the technology that our organizations use to run every day, and the more we can get them to be part of our security solutions, the better off we're all going to be. So I'll leave you with that and open up things for questions.
Thanks, Scott. So I had just, I guess, a comment first and just kind of an offering out to the people listening. So anyone can go out and do a 30-day trial of the Phish Threat software, which I highly encourage you to do. One thing I may encourage you to talk to us about that is we provide implementation services as part of that campaign. These campaigns aren't complex to roll out, but there are some best practice and some intricacies that we can help just ease the process of deploying one of these inside that 30-day trial. Because I think that's many times we use this to just create awareness to, an ownership or administrative level to make them understand the severity of this problem. So I just highly encourage you to reach out to us and let us help you set up some of those campaigns for you. As far as questions, make sure if anyone has questions, put them in the questions tab. One question would be, what is your perception? So I did a demonstration of the software a few weeks ago, and I had a mixed environment of talking about, do I offer training first, or do I push out these campaigns first and get data without them having any kind of direct, warning of these campaigns coming? I know when we did it internally with our staff, we just put the training bolted on to the end of the campaign. If they clicked it or if they did whatever they did, we had the follow-up. But I know some people would prefer to give their employees or their coworkers a chance to educate themselves with the training first. Can you talk about that a little bit of whether it's a best practice or just, can you just start with almost a professional development piece and push those trainings on the users first?
Yeah, it's a great question, Brandon. There are best practices. Ultimately, I do want to stress, do what you feel is right in the context of your organization. You may have done, security awareness training already with your users. You may have some kind of internal program set up where, so this may not be the first time you're addressing some of these topics with users. If that's the case, then it may be best for you to jump right in with kind of the simulation and the phishing assessment. In other cases, if this is really kind of something you feel is a very weak spot, then yeah, starting with the training may be appropriate. that the best practice that I would stress though in either case, and again, do what's right in your organization and for your goals. But we find it's best if you do start out with at least a sort of primer to your users about what you're going to be doing and why. Not the day before you do it, right? You don't want to skew your results or anything, but let's say, a few weeks before you're going to run your first phishing assessment. Just getting a message out to your users, talking with them directly if it's possible to help them understand, hey, we're going to be doing these assessments from time to time. We're not going to tell you when they're coming for obvious reasons, but here's why we're doing it. It's not to catch you. It's not to find who the bad employees are. It is about just getting an objective measurement of our risks and helping people, helping all of us to be safer and to employ, good, secure practices in our day-to-day lives, and of course, in our lives as they pertain to our work. So that would be the best practice I'd stress, is do this with consent, because you want your end users being engaged. You want them to be open to this. You want ultimately this to be a positive experience where they're looking to do a good job, where they're looking to learn and ultimately become those users in your organization that will say something when they spot something that looks suspicious, which is obviously extremely helpful to all of us. So that would be my key best practice to give you, whether you start with a phishing assessment or a training. I think if you had never done training before, our best practice would say go with the training first. Teach the skills, and then follow up with practice in the form of the phishing assessment.
Great, thanks. The next question, or point I wanted to make is what you can do from a management side when you get that data. So when we ran ours internally, we allowed the people to take it and watched who clicked and clicked through or just opened, and then had the follow-up training. Our thought on it and our idea of how to kind of manage that was not so much to follow up individually with those people that did click through, but just keep an eye on the people that didn't follow up on the training. So if they clicked through and were compromised or fell for the phishing attack, did they complete the training and the follow up few slides, or whichever one they did as the follow up? And we actually can manipulate how often they are reminded. So saying, hey, remind them every morning or every day if they have not taken that training after clicking the email. So you have full control over, how frequently you want to follow up and confirm that all of your staff that clicked or didn't click the emails up on the training. So I think that's an important piece that you can, figure out how you want to follow up with it. I don't know if you had any other thoughts on that, Scott, or the other, maybe just one more point I would make. If you were looking at this, or maybe comparing this to other, phishing simulation software out there, I think one thing that separates Sophos from a lot of the ones we see in our area is when you, purchase and implement this, you are getting the entire suite with that one SKU. So if you want the Phish threat campaign, you are getting the entire portfolio automatically. There is no kind of, maybe the phishing simulation campaigns without the training. That it's all in there as one package. And I really think, just doing the simulation campaigns without the follow-up training is doing a disservice to your users. As yes, we're getting data as who's clicking what, but we're not doing anything to teach them why they clicked it and what was how they could spot this next time. I think that's really an important piece, and especially to do it instantly. I clicked this. Here's what you did. Here's what you did wrong. Here's what you can look for next time. I think that's a really important part of this.
Yeah.
Got any other thoughts or questions? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, good points there. Good comments. I think I wholeheartedly agree. I guess going from your second point back and then back to your first, Just also on the license, one thing to mention, as Brandon said, you get everything. You get all the features. You get all the training content. You get all of the emails. Nothing. There is no, you don't have to pay a higher subscription to unlock more content. But the other valuable thing, and this we believe in very strongly, is that once you pay for one of those licenses, you get unlimited use for each of those users. So that's important, right? Because we go back to that thing about this kind of thing does need to be done relatively frequently to be effective and to stay top of mind. And so we completely subscribe to the philosophy that you should be able to do as many trainings, as many assessments as you think are right for your organization under one of those licenses. To your other point, Brandon, I agree there as well on the following up with the users that maybe didn't complete the training. What I'd add to that is, what we've seen, and there are some some industry reports that back some of this up, is you want to think about problems not only in terms of who's clicking and who might not be, who might not yet have learned all the techniques to stay safe. That's a solvable problem, right? That's what PhishStart is designed to do. We'll teach them, we'll run them through a lot of practice, and we'll teach them things and give them information, and they will improve. Whether they'll ever get to not clicking on anything, again, that's just going to be a factor of kind of how sophisticated the attacks are that get thrown at them. But that's a solvable problem. The harder problem to solve, and the one that's potentially more dangerous to your organization, is a lack of engagement. And that's what's evidenced by people who just don't follow up with the training, right? Because that lack of engagement is going to carry, that shows a general disregard, and it may not be malicious, it may just be they've got other concerns, but it's a lack of understanding of how serious of a threat phishing really is, and just security in general, right? And what it can mean to your business and to your organization if something God forbid did happen, right? So that lack of engagement, it's a warning sign, and you want to get on it, and it's going to carry through to, like I said before, you're ultimately trying to drive this to where it's a positive culture of users being aware, spotting things that don't look right, and reporting them into to the IT or security team, so that you're able to respond as quickly as possible. And you don't get that if you have disengaged users. So I wholeheartedly agree with the point you made there, Brandon. I think it's a really good one.
Great. Well, if there's not any more questions, I think we can wrap up. We're right at the top of the hour here. So again, the big takeaway here is reach out to us. You can email sales@pinecc.com and set up a demo at the very least, and we make it very easy and automate a lot of the pieces to getting it deployed, and then you can take it from there, and we can help you kind of and advise on where to go next with that information. So Scott, again, thanks so much for joining us. It's amazing that you're willing and able to help us and advise our customer base. We really appreciate it. And if there's anything else that comes up from our attendees, please reach out to us. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks very much.